Hello and welcome back to another video lesson, still about statistics. For today, we're going to organize data in a frequency distribution table and use appropriate graphs to represent and organize data using pie chart, bar graph, line graph, histogram, and ogive. Since we're going to talk about organizing and presenting data or data, it is but proper to recall its meaning. These are facts or information about ideas, objects, or events. Ito yung mga nakalap or nakuha na nating information from our target population or sample. And this can be classified into two. We have qualitative and quantitative. When we say qualitative, these are information in words or codes that represent a class or category. For example, we can have the class section, preference, just like yes or no, blood types, favorite food, movie, or music. Those are examples of qualitative data. And when we say quantitative, these are numbers that represent an amount or count. Let's say, for example, we would like to get the temperature, and the data that we can get is in degrees Celsius or in degree Fahrenheit. Same thing with the weight, height, amount of time, etc. So once we have gathered all those data na kailangan natin in our study, we need to know how to organize or summarize and present it in a good manner. We have three methods of organizing and presenting data. First is by using textual presentation. This is usually used when there are only few data to be presented, just like this sentence. DOH recorded 13,699 active cases as of June 1, with the majority of the patients exhibiting mild symptoms. So as you can see here, present yung information ng active cases by just putting it in a sentence. The second one is by tabular presentation. So from the word tabular, it makes use of tables. Just like here, na may mga numbers which talks about the frequency. So in the next few slides, I'm going to explain how to create a frequency table. Third is by using graphical presentation. In this technique, we make use of graph for visual presentation. We have different kinds of graphs here at i-explain din natin to isa-isa later. And this is an example. So depende ito sa choice and purpose ng iyong pagpe-present. So let us explain each and give more examples. When we say textual presentation, you present your data using text or words in a sentence. The examples that I'm going to present is based on the infographic released by the DOH as of June 1, 2021. First, a total of 2,669 healthcare with 1,438 recoveries and 32 deaths. In this sentence, ang pinaka-information na binibigay is just about the number of healthcare workers na tinamaan ng COVID, its recoveries, and deaths. So, hindi kasama dito yung mga normal group of people or workers in other industries. Next, most of the confirmed cases are male, and most cases are within the age 20 to 39. 24 cases with an specified age are included in the total. In this sentence, pinapaliwanag lang na karamihan ng active cases that day ay mga lalaki at galing sa age group na 20 to 39. At meron dito na hindi ma-specify kung ano nga ba yung edad nila. And the last one, we have the average hospital length of stay for recovered patients is at 17 days. So as you can see here, most of the data that are explained here are quantitative data, and it is presented using textual forms. That is by explaining and elaborating the meaning of those numbers using sentence or paragraphs. The second method to present data is by using a table. We usually refer to it as a frequency distribution table. It is a collection of observations produced by sorting them into classes, showing their frequency or numbers of occurrences in each class. We have three basic types of it. We have categorical data, ungroup data, and grouped data. First, let's have categorical data. Kung ang data na nakuha natin ay based from categories or words or codes, we can arrange it in a frequency table. So just like here, the following data give the results of sample survey wherein our samples are asked to choose from three categories, A, B, and C. Para ma-summarize to, gagamit tayo ng frequency table with two columns. One column is for our category and another column is for the frequency. For the category column, we have A, B, and C. Next is for the frequency. Frequency refers to the number of occurrences. So, ilang beses nag-appear yung letter A in our sample or ilan nga ba yung tao na pumili ng category na to. So, we simply just need to count that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. For letter B, 11. And for letter C, 16. So now, we still have one row below, and that is to get the total. So we simply need to add the number of frequencies, 8 plus 11 plus 16, that is 35. It is important to put the total here para ma-double check natin kung na-count ba natin ng maayos yung lahat ng samples or data na meron tayo dito. So this is what we call frequency table for categorical data. Next is for ungrouped data. When we say ungrouped data, the data are usually quantitative in nature. That means numbers. At konti lang yung samples natin dito. Just like here, we have the weekly allowances of 10 high school students. If we're going to put it in a frequency table, we can have three columns. The first column is for variable that we have, or ano nga ba yung data na kinuha natin. So that is the allowance. Second column is for tally, and third is for frequency. The tally column will simply help us in counting the number of occurrences of the data. So after we tally it, we put the final number in the frequency column. Itong tally column na to ay optional lamang. Depende kung gusto nyong ipakita or hindi. So, how do we put this data into this table? First is we list the scores or numbers from highest to lowest or vice versa. So, let's list or arrange this from lowest to highest. So, the lowest is 15, the highest is 200. Next is for the tally. Itatali mo lang kung ano yung nag-appear. First, we have 40, 100, 20. Dito, tinali natin isa-isa. And for the last one, we just need to summarize this tally into the frequency column. So here are the frequencies. So it means one student has an allowance of 15, 20, 70, 100, 120, and 200 each, while two students have an allowance of 40 pesos and 50 pesos. Of course, last but not the least, it is proper to have a total below. This total column will help us to verify kung tama ba yung count or tally na nagawa natin. Again, we call it ungrouped data dahil itong mga data na to ay isa-isa nating sinulat at nilagay naman natin yung frequency nila on its corresponding row. The third type of frequency distribution table is for grouped data. This is applicable when observations are sorted into classes of more than one value. Here, data are still quantitative in nature, that means numbers, at dahil medyo malalayo yung difference at marami na tayong samples dito, it is proper to group them accordingly para hindi naman masyadong mahaba yung rows natin sa ating frequency distribution table. We have the first column for our class interval, second is for our tally, and third is for our frequency. When we say class interval, dito pumapasok yung groupings ng data na gagawin natin. Let's fill in the column for the class interval. First is to start from the smallest value. In our data, we have these scores in a 60-item test, and the least or the smallest score here is 28. Next is to use the desired class interval to group the data. Depende ito kung anong class interval din yung gagamitin nyo. Here, let's have 4. That means we must group these scores by 4. So starting from 28, we need to include 4 scores here. We'll have 28, 29, 30, 31. This interval has 4 values. After 31, we have 32. Again, from 32, 33, 34, 35. That's the grouping, and so on, so forth, until we reach the highest possible score. Again, itong class interval is yung groupings ng ating mga data. Next is we tally it. 42 here, 35, 39, and so on, so forth. Alright, once we're done tallying it, we simply just write it properly in the frequency column. So to double check our answer, we simply just need to put total here and add the frequency. So it must be equal to the total samples or data that we have here. So we have 30 samples here. In this frequency table, we have this class interval column, which is for the groupings of data. Kaya siya tinawag na group data dahil grinupo natin yung mga scores and nilagay natin yung corresponding frequency ng may mga scores na belong to that group. Alright, so far we have discussed the different types of frequency distribution table. We have this table for categorical or qualitative data in words, codes, and we simply just count the number of respondents or samples who chose that category. Next is for the ungroup data. This is usually applicable for quantitative data, at kapag konti lang ang ating data, we simply just arrange it from smallest to highest or highest to smallest, and we count the number of its occurrences. And the third one is for group data. Still, it is applicable for our quantitative data, and dahil masyadong marami na yung data or samples na meron tayo at malalayo yung range nila, it is but proper to simply group those scores which we refer to as class interval, and then we tally and put the frequency that fall under that group. So this frequency distribution table is good when we summarize our data, whether in categories, numerically, or in group. Dahil dito, in just a simple glance, mas makikita natin kung ano nga ba yung mas maraming choices or mas konti, ilan nga ba yung total respondents, and many more. Now, let's proceed to the third method on how to organize and present data, and this time using graphs. We'll have 5 different graphs that we'll discuss to present our data visually. First, let's have a line graph. It is a graph that uses points connected by lines to show something changes in value. Here is an example. It uses straight lines to connect the points wherein itong mga points na to yung current scores or performance nung category na iyon. We have the horizontal axis, which pertains to the months, while the vertical axis pertains to the fill rate or percentage ng performance ng company na ito. You can see here the trend na noong January, it performed 92%, then tumaas noong February, bumaba noong March, and continuously tumaas naman noong April and May, and so on, so forth. In a graph, it is important to know kung saang axis nga ba natin ilalagay yung ating data. Importante na may label din ang ating horizontal and vertical axis at yung pinaka-title ng ating graph. This one is about order fill rate performance ng isang company. Dahil doon, mas madali nang iintindihan kung para saan yung graph na ito. Another one, we have this. Hindi ba natin makita yung mga points dahil masyadong mararami, makikita pa rin natin yung trend ng bawat data. Let's say, for example, for the Philippines, we have color blue. This is the new coronavirus waves. From April na medyo mataas, pababa naman ito nung May at medyo paakyat ng June. So, mas madaling makita yung trend or pag-change ng value ng ating data. That is what we call the line graph. Next is the bar graph. This is a graph consisting of vertical or horizontal bars that proportionally represent a data. Usually, it is used for categorical or qualitative data, and the frequencies are displayed by the heights of the vertical bars. Katulad nito, ito yung birthday of students per month. Ang categories natin ay per month, January to December, at yung frequency, instead of table, gumamit tayo ng graph, at itong y-axis natin, yung nagpapakita ng frequency or kung ilan nga ba yung students na may birthday in that specific month. For example, January, we have 3, Feb, 4, March, 2, and then June, ayun ang pinakamarami, we have 10, and ang pinakakonti naman is August. As you can see, itong mga vertical bars ay hiwa-hiwalay dahil nga magkakaiba naman ito ng category or month. So another example taken from the OH infographic. So this is the age and sex distribution of confirmed cases. So dito naman ay horizontal yung paglagay ng data. Nandito yung pinaka-category or age group or age interval, at dito naman makikita yung frequency or bilang ng mga may cases in that specific age. For example, COVID cases from 0 to 19 years old, 618 for female, 767 for male. Ang may mga pinakamaraming cases in terms of female ay nasa age na 40 to 59, while sa male naman, ang pinakamarami is yung nasa age 20 to 39 years old. So dito, mas mabilis tayong makapag-summarize dahil obvious naman ito sa ating visual presentation. The third graph is what we call CirclePi Graph. It is circular statistical graphic which is divided into slices to represent the numerical proportion. Our graph is circular shape and it is divided into sections or wedges. And this is according to the percentage of frequencies that fall in that category or distribution. So for example, in this graph, which shows the preferred vacation places of different persons, the whole circle, which is 100%, is divided into different slices or wedges. And kung gaano kalaki yung wedge nila or slices nila, yun din yung may pinakamalaki or mataas na percentage or frequencies or preference sa kategory na ito. For example, 40% ng mga tinanong ay mas prefer ang Boracay, while ang pinakakonting preferred vacation place is sa Baguio, which gathered 7% only. Another infographic from DOH. This one, kaya may tao dyan sa loob because it pertains to health workers na may active cases. You can see that 997 have mild symptoms, 201 are asymptomatic, isa yung severe, and 0 critical. Itong orange part na to, ayan yung may pinaka mas malaking portion, which is 83% nung total na 1,199. So that is what we call circle or pie graph. The fourth is histogram. It is a bar graph-like representation of data. Almost similar to sa bar graph, pero dito ay dikit-dikit ang bars nila. A frequency distribution shows how often each different value in a set of data occurs. This is usually applicable for quantitative or continuous data. Katulad dito, in our horizontal axis, we have the age of people from youngest 14 up to eldest 78. So continuous na tumataas yung age ng tao dito, and as we can see, magkakadikit yung mga bars. Ito ay para mas mapakita kung gaano ka-related yung distribution ng scores na to from one group to another. Another example here Makikita din yung trend ng pagtaas ng COVID cases per day, especially at its peak nung pataas ng pataas at the end of March up to April 9. After that, we had another stricter quarantine, kaya naman bumaba din yung trend ng ating COVID cases. So that is what we call histogram. Okay? And the last one is ogive. It is a graph that represents the cumulative frequencies for the classes in a frequency distribution. So this one is a bit similar to a line graph, pero ang pagkakaiba nito is itong mga points na to does not pertain to the frequencies per category, but more on the cumulative frequency. When we say cumulative frequency, ito yung mga naiipong frequency kapag inad natin yung one data to another. Itong ating horizontal axis is about the class boundaries, while ito naman yung ating cumulative frequency. So this is a bit applicable on grouped data. So to give you a best example, let's have this graph. This graph shows the total number of deaths caused by COVID-19 in the Philippines. So from last year, kung saan ito nag-start, continuously nadadagdagan yung number of cases. So in the span of time of more than 1 year, from the minimal number, taas ito ng pataas, hanggang nag-reach ng total number of deaths na 21,012 noong June 1, 2021. This point doesn't mean na 21,000 yung namatay noong June 1, but this point pertains to the cumulative, yan na yung pinagsama-sama na yung number of deaths per day hanggang sa makarating siya sa date na June 1. So ang total nito ay 21,012 na. Ito yung mas nagpapakita ng pagbilis ng pagtaas ng number of cases. Okay? So now let's summarize our lesson. We have discussed the 3 methods of organizing and presenting data. We have textual, tabular, and graphical presentation. For textual presentation, we simply use sentence or paragraph in summarizing our data. For tabular presentation, of course, we use table, and we have discussed the 3 basic types. And the last one is graphical presentation, and that is by using the different kinds of graphs, just like bar graph, line graph, circle or pie graph, histogram, and ogive. Ang pag-organize at pag-present ng data ay depende sa available fact or information na meron ka. I hope this video lesson helps you on how to organize and present your data in different manners. Thank you and God bless.